Eugene, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Matthew, thank you. Pleasure being here.
Fantastic. Guys, today I'd like to welcome to the podcast episode. We're going to delve into the insights and experience of Eugene Gershman, co-founder of and CEO of GIS Developments Corp, and prominent real estate development company. Over the past 20 years, Eugene has transformed his venture from a humble two-person team to a powerhouse generating 30 million annually. With profound journey, he started in finance, led him to his father's construction company, and finally launching a successful development arm. Eugene has mastered the nuance of the world of real estate, and despite facing challenges during the market shift in 2022, Eugene emerged with invaluable lessons on leadership, risk management, and legacy building. Passionate about empowering landowners, Eugene advocates for developing rather than selling land, and in his experience and insights have graced numerous platforms, including Best Ever Real Estate Investing Advice and Agents Building Cash Flow. Eugene has a superpower, helping property owners and new developers turn underutilized land into successful residential projects while navigating his risk, raising capital, and staying resilient through the market shifts. He is super proficient in Excel, usually developing financial projections and performers himself. Awesome. Eugene, so good to have you. I'm really excited to dive deep into understanding your business, how you've built your business, what you've been doing in the business world, and obviously with the real estate context. And yeah, it's something that I'm a bit passionate about as well. So looking forward to this. Let's start a little bit in the beginning. Tell us about you used to be in finance, and that's your origins, and you've moved into real estate. Like there's a big gap between finance and origins, yet they're super similar, right? Like you got to know your numbers for real estate, right? How did you go from that transition from the finance world into real estate development?
The short answer is my father sort of tricked me into it. But growing up, we're a family business originally started by my father, and he was a general contractor. And so growing up, I always seen him work. I've seen the stress that he was through, and I'm like, I don't want to be a builder. I would do anything, but I don't want to go into construction. My sister, on the other hand, she kind of always knew that she'd join the family business. But I got my undergraduate degree in economics, and I got a job at this investment firm, and I'm like, I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
So after 2 or 3 years running financial retirement projections for older folks, I got bored. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? So I signed up for the evening MBA program, and I'm like, I'll just continue working here. It's funny, like looking back 25 years ago, I was getting paid something like, I don't know, like $30,000 a year. And I'm like, whoa, that, like looking back, I'm like it means nothing, right? So went back, got my MBA. My last year of my MBA, my dad calls me. He's like, hey, I've got this project I'm working on. And they send me, I have an opportunity to build this, but they are also looking for equity partners. And I'm thinking maybe I could invest and form a joint venture partnership. Maybe we could invest our profits. But he goes, I don't know how to read these financial models. Do you mind taking a look at it? So I'm like, sure, send it over to me. And I'm reading through it. And I just finished the course on financial modeling at my MBA program. So I'm looking at the financial model, and it's actually pretty cool. The project is interesting. So I called back. I'm like, well, I reviewed it. It's cool. It's like one of the most complicated models I've ever seen. Obviously, I haven't seen enough by then, but it looks good. He goes, well, that's great. I'm going to this meeting to meet with these potential partners. Do you mind joining me just so that you could, help me? Because I don't really understand the numbers that well. I'm like, sure, okay. So I went to that meeting, then I went to the follow-up meeting, then I went to another meeting, and eventually he's like, that would have allowed our company to open a new branch division in a new area and hire a bunch of new people and start doing this job. And so my dad says, okay, well, I guess we're doing it. We need to hire, the general manager. We need to hire all these people. He goes, I wish I just have somebody that I could send there to kind of be my eyes, somebody that I could trust to look over things. And I'm like, okay, fine. So, right, he totally reeled me in. So that's how I joined the business. I mean, that was back in 2003, 2004 now. So over 20 years, that's how I joined the family business. And gradually, looking over the numbers, looking over the process, things started to make more sense. I developed this phrase that I always use: "Come on, you guys, it's not rocket science. We can figure this out. Like, even if we don't know, like, how hard can it be?"
Yeah.
And my team would always hate when I say that. They're like, "Stop saying that. It's some of these things are actually complicated." I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine, but it's not, not like we're launching a space shuttle."
The mindset that you bring into business is that there's no such thing as a problem. There's always a solution. Or like, is that something that you have as a mindset that you have in your business?
Yeah, you can definitely say that. I guess I never described it that way, but for sure, every time I'm faced with a challenge of some sort, the way I handle it is try to figure out how to solve it. And
Find a solution.
exactly, like every individual piece of a problem is solvable.
Right.
Altogether, it might seem complicated, but if you break it down into smaller pieces, then you can start tackling them one at a time.
Love
And
that.
that's generally the approach.
Yeah, that's a really good, powerful context to have when, like you just said, a lot of stuff is overwhelming when you look at it from a bigger picture perspective. But if you break it down into the smaller pieces, it's more manageable. And then you do these pieces, and then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, wow, I've done like half of the thing already. It's more motivational, right? I love that. Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one step after another.
Sorry, say that again?
It's one step after another.
Yeah, exactly. And then as soon as you know it, boom, you've created a solution, right? So
Right.
from your humble beginnings, you've created a $30 million a year operation. What have been some of the key milestones or key shifts that have helped you put together your business and keep things moving forward, even though the market has been turbulent?
I think the main thing that us continue growing and evolving was going back to this concept that the way we grew the business was sort of organically happening, going back to the original concept of the partnership that we started out when I joined the family business. We started by partnering with property owners to help them get stuff done. So with that, we already had one foot into the project, and then we brought in our resources, our experience to help develop it. Since then, we've acquired a few properties traditionally that we would develop. But then eventually, especially after the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, 2008, 2009, we took a bit of a step back, but then came back into the development world by going back to that original model. Let's find folks that have the land, that have development ambitions, but don't really have enough resources, whether it's experience or financial resources or otherwise, to partner with them and
Yeah.
to help them put these projects together.
So
If
good.
we
I just want to dive into that a little bit because I think that's such a great kind of story if you think about it, right? There's a lot of business people that run businesses come into the markets trying to do a whole lot of stuff themselves, right? They want to wear so many hats. What I love about your idea is you've created a business process or opportunity where it's easier to work or partner with people, as in these people who already own land and they might have inherited them or through whatever business acquirings. And there's a gap for them. The knowledge gap for them to do that thing is huge, right? And so you come in here with your knowledge and experience as a developer builder, and you're partnering with these people and you're creating this symbiosis that is so awesome. You've created an offer that's literally irresistible. I love that whole context. It's really good. Continue how this kind of then evolved.
Well, so what we've noticed is that people that own properties, they are divided into these two camps. There's one camp of people that thinks that development is super easy. I just hire an architect, I hire a contractor, I'll get the permit and I get it done. Like, I'll go to the bank, get a loan. Like, what's so hard about it? And then there's another camp that thinks real estate development is so complicated, so difficult, and so risky that they would never even want to think about it. And so we're trying to do is bridge the gap between these two notions. No, it's not impossible, and no, it's not easy. Because if you think that it's easy, you're going to lose a lot of money because you're going to make a ton of mistakes. And if you think it's so hard, then you're never going to start.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm on a mission of right now, is just to explain that, look, it is harder than you think. If you think it's easy, And yes, it is possible if you work with people that have done it before.
Totally. And that is as the consultant that has done multiple of these projects, right? If somebody was to do, and this is like it's throughout business, right? And people want to have success in life and business and real estate and wealth and all that kind of stuff. Trying to do it by yourself is so much harder than partnering with a consultant or a company or people that have done the thing multiple times. Like it shortcuts the years. It shaves years off the process and you're learning together, right? Like it's just a powerful context. And I always say to people, because we deal with a lot of people that sell high ticket stuff. So they're always on this notion that, who's going to buy from me? Who's going to do business with me? But if you have an opportunity to shortcut time and give people a quicker way to get to the place, like that's huge. And that's what you're doing, right?
Exactly.
So good. So in 2023, the market kicked us in the butt, or this early, I think it was 2022, the real estate market did a shift, right? It was a challenging period for quite a lot of people all around the world, really, in terms of real estate. I know personally, we took a bit of a shock. What did you do to undergo during this tough season, and how did you redefine your approach to your leadership and risk management?
Absolutely. So you're right. Yes, the downturn started happening in 2022, post-COVID, inflation that happened all over the world. All of our governments printed too much money. Stuff became more expensive. And that caused a ton of problems in real estate. And so unfortunately, we ended up losing a ton of money. We lost a couple of projects in 2023 following that, mostly due to interest rates increases, price increases, and demand for real estate deals going down. So that was, that was very challenging. Around that time was when we officially decided that construction is going to have to be closed, which I've been thinking about for a long time. So that was just a good opportunity to shut down the construction company and to double down on our original position of partnerships, to bring in more deals. The biggest lesson that I personally learned from that is the risk of leverage. I used to be super proud of my ability to come up with creative financing solutions. And ultimately, that's what ended up hurting us. The creative structure ultimately led to not having enough equity in the deal and giving the lenders too much power. And so that was the biggest lesson that we learned.
What was the actual lesson? What is the lesson out of that? Look at who you're partnering with. What is the big lesson?
The biggest lesson is to not over leverage deals. Even if your lender is offering you a 90% financing, it might sound great because you don't need to invest that much money. You don't need to share equity with investors. If markets shift and your finished real estate is not worth as much as you thought it would be, then the lender takes it all.
Yeah, gotcha. So I understand. So what you're leveraging is there's the risk, always manage that risk, which is the amount of money you got in the investment versus what the bank can take from you if the market shifts, which is huge,
Exactly.
right? I love that. Thank you. Sorry.
What was I saying? So what we had to learn is something that we haven't done before, is how to bring in other investors into our deals. And so that was a huge learning curve for me because I sort of organically grew. We had some of our family assets that we would invest. We would invest the land that the partners brought into the deal. But in the last couple of years, I started looking around. I'm like, well, there's got to be better ways of doing it. And sure enough, apparently people have been doing it for years, decades or centuries, however you want to look at it. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm an idiot. I should have been more focused on fundraising and actually working as a true capital raiser and a true investment company rather than just a development sort of process-oriented company. And so that was the biggest shift for me personally, is to realize that and to use the knowledge that I have about the development process to now also deliver this value to not just the property owners that we partner with, but to third-party limited partners, investors that come in and that have the capital to put in the deals and grow it.
Sounds like a shift from where I'm standing. It sounds like a shift from into the marketing world, right? To go out and find different kind of people that you can work with. So now you kind of got to get your word out there so that you can attract the right investors to work with you and partner with you on these deals. So you're learning a lot of new marketing skills, if I'm hearing correctly.
Marketing is definitely a huge component of it. It's funny because, with a business degree, when I graduated in 2004, I'm like, well, I know everything there is to know about marketing. Of course, social media changed all of that. Back in 2004, we weren't learning how to manage social media. There was no AI back then. So now you have to figure out how to be noticed, how to get the word out, and also how to compete with AI that's just blasting the world with a bunch of garbage that you need to be able to overcome.
So good, so good. And that there's no shortage of learning these days because there's a lot of noise. And for entrepreneurs out there that are trying to stand out from the crowd, one of the hardest things right now is to be the voice that people are looking at. I mean, when you come out of business, right?
I think I was just reading somewhere not too long ago that the first podcast got launched in 2004. So that was the year I graduated.
Right. Wow.
And nobody knew like how to monetize it, how to capitalize on it. I mean, I might have heard about them, but it was like just one of those silly audio recordings that people would download from the internet, put on their iPods.
Yeah. So crazy, right? It's not even that long ago if you think in the big grand scheme of things, how fast everything has gone, right? And so these days, to be an entrepreneur, to be a coach, a consultant, or anything, you need to be on your game. Being authentic in this crazy world is one of the key ingredients needed to be able to stand out. I think that's why podcasts are really popular, is because you're authentically having conversations with people and it resonates with an audience, right? That's what I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's this unscripted type of a conversation that you can have with people from different parts of the world, like what we're having right now, right? And you don't even need complicated setups. You don't need to go to a recording studio. You could literally do it from your house, from your office, using your regular laptop or even a cell phone.
I love the whole context of doing this type of podcast. Number one, you're learning from other entrepreneurs. You get to share your message as well. But all the podcasts, I'm sure you've had quite a few podcasts where you're hanging out with entrepreneurs and you get to learn from each other, right? It's such a powerful tool in the whole grand scheme of marketing. Do you use podcasting? Is your podcasting bringing in investors into your world?
So the purpose of the podcast that I host is to educate listeners about the real estate development process. And the way I position it is, if I can teach someone and they could listen to a few episodes and pick up a few lessons or tricks, I'm happy for them. If they start listening to me and then realize that it's more complicated than what they anticipated, they can give me a call and I'm happy to step in and partner with them and get this job done. My initial motivation was to offer value, and if it brings business to us, great. If not, I feel good about it because I've delivered some value to the world. Wow. And then as far as investments, when I go and talk to folks like yourself, I talk about different opportunities that we have. And again, it's not a hard sell. We have opportunities, we have projects that we're working on, and I don't have anything to pitch today.
Yeah.
I would love to get acquainted with more people. And when the opportunities do arise, I would love to send you an update. And if it's a fit, it's a fit.
So that's a really interesting context, because selling these days, no one wants to be sold to, right? It's conversations. How many conversations you can have with people. That's the key. And people want to do business with people they like, not AI. Right?
Exactly.
But you mentioned the importance of developing real estate rather than selling. Could you explain your approach and how you're helping owners navigate the complexities of real estate development and accessing capital?
So I think the biggest selling point that we deliver is when somebody comes to us, and I get pitched by property owners and brokers all the time. Here's a piece of land. Why don't you buy it? It's a great development opportunity. And what I typically say is, look, if your seller doesn't have buyers already, then I most likely wouldn't be the buyer anyway. But if they truly think that it's a great development opportunity, Let's look at it together and we'll show them how to develop it and how to bring value. Because ultimately, let's say they sold. What are they going to do with the money?
Yeah.
And the answer in most cases is, oh, I'm probably just going to reinvest it in something else, probably another piece of real estate. Okay,
Right.
well, if you're reinvesting this in another piece of real estate, why not double down on your own property and create
Very
value
good.
there and create more opportunities there?
Say no. Do you say no to a lot of people?
We say no to people that want to just simply sell and get out because we're not buyers.
Gotcha.
But as far as developing together, usually the way it works is when somebody brings us an opportunity, we look at it, we offer the partnership model, and they say, well, great, let's partner. Here's the piece of land, do whatever you got to do. But the first thing that we have to do is run a feasibility study.
Gotcha.
And what we typically tell that owner is, depending on the size of the potential project, there is a cost to do the feasibility study. And we
Right.
typically ask the owner to pay for the feasibility study. And
Yeah.
that's where sometimes friction happens because they're like, well, why would I want to pay for it? I
Yeah.
want to sell. I want money in my pocket, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
that I explain it is, look, right now you're the owner of this property. If I do all this work and you walk away, I get nothing.
Yeah.
If I do all this work and you go away, you get this entire package that I've done for you. So
Yeah.
the feasibility study is an asset that I'm going to help you create. Even if you
Yeah.
decide to not go through the development, you get to attach that packet to your offering memorandum,
Yeah.
and now you've
Yeah.
increased the value of your property. And some folks are not comfortable with that. To me, it's also the sign of motivation to actually go through the deal. Everybody likes to talk, but not. Sorry.
Exactly. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you short. I just want to highlight something important that's happening here. And a lot of people that I speak to in my world have this notion that they've got to give away free stuff, right? If I don't give away free stuff, people aren't going to do business with me. Two very important things that I've picked up from the conversation that you had, and I think is super important, is that number one, you have a line in the stand, as in you have a feasibility. So if the numbers speak, the numbers speak, right? So you have obviously everyone has to make money, which I love about that, right? You've got a line in the sand. That's good. So you're saying no, you're going to do this feasibility, but there's going to be if it's a good numbers, it's going to be, everyone goes ahead. If the numbers are not so good, well, it's very clear why, and then you make that decision. I love that. But what I really love most is that you are very clear that you're not giving away your consulting for free. So many business owners out there, they give away so much for free, and then people walk away and they get nothing for it, right? And they've just wasted time, energy, effort on all of these things. Whereas if you're working with people that know your value, that appreciate your value and appreciate that feasibility, everything becomes so much more different. The relationship is stronger, the bond is better, and they get this clear package that you've created, right? This feasibility, and they get to walk away with this amazing thing, regardless of whether the numbers are good or not. Now they can make educated decisions based on your expertise. How powerful is that? Like, I just love that. And I really appreciate that you mentioned that and talked about that.
Right. And I would like to add that I do believe that there should be some goodwill given out there. And that's why we actually came up with a feasibility study checklist that we are happy to give away. And it's like a 7-step process. It's on our website that
Yeah.
anybody can download and go through the process. So I tell owners, look, if you want to do your own feasibility study, I'll give you the manual. I'll tell you how to do it, and you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Go through
Gotcha.
the 7 steps, finish it, then bring it to me, and let's take a look at it. If it makes sense, fine. But if you want me to do it, then that work costs money. So that's how we approach it.
Amazing. Makes sense. Totally love that. So you have a process. Sounds like you have a very clear process, and this helps you navigate your business, which is really good, right? A lot of people don't have these types of processes, and that's why they get lost in the weeds. I really appreciate you sharing that you have this clear process that you're working through. And do you believe that your system drives results?
I definitely do. To your previous point about marketing, we never had to. I mean, our marketing consisted of having a website and printed shirts and hard hats and, business cards. That was our marketing.
Yeah.
We every time we would do a project, we would hire a PR company and we'd do some actual marketing around the project, but never really focused on marketing our business. So
Yeah.
today, yes, it's definitely, as soon as we started implementing that, I'm a believer of providing free education, but then charging for the service. And so it basically comes down to, I'll tell you how to do it. I'm working on a book right now. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit because it's been taking me so long, but it's almost like a how-to manual of how to develop a real estate project.
Yeah.
And the reason it's taking me so long is I've never written a book before. But what I would do is I would go on a walk about once a week, once every 2 weeks for like an hour and a half, and I would dictate the next section of the chapter. And as I'm dictating, obviously my mind veers off and I'm going on tangents. And so I'm having this long narration about a subject that I transcribe, throw into AI to help me organize and proofread it. I'm up to like chapter 4 now, and it's been about 4 months. But that's the idea of I'd like to give out the education.
Yeah.
Here's how to do it. If you want to do it yourself, just follow the steps.
Good.
Or
I
if you
love
want
that.
us to do it, then we'll do it. My phone usually rings when somebody gets stuck at financing stage. They're like, well, I've
Yeah.
hired the architect. We're getting the permits. I talked to a couple GCs. This is my lowest bidder. But my bank wouldn't finance the deal because I don't have enough experience. And by the way, I need another $5 million of additional equity.
Very good. I love
And
it. Let's take a minute because you got a whole lot of stuff going on there. I love that. Number one, let's start off with your book. The number one leveraging tool in the whole world is a book. And I'm very impressed that you're writing a book, giving away free value, 100%. I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of giving away value because that's super important, especially if you want to build a network of an audience around you. You need to give away as much free stuff, telling people how to do it, and then you're helping them with implementation. I have a friend that specializes in books, and one of the most incredible wealth building tools besides real estate, I believe, is a book, because a book creates your authority. It establishes you as the person that wrote the book on that thing. And it's a scalable tool that you can give out to people or sell. Some people sell it for a low price. Some people give it away for free, whatever the model is. But the book is such a powerful leveraging tool. When do you expect your book's going to be finished?
I thought it was going to be finished in like February. I'll continue walking now that summer is here. It's going to be much easier. It doesn't rain as much here in Seattle. So hopefully by the end of summer, I'll have it done.
Awesome. I love that. And I would have loved to have been able to help listeners with that, but you'll have that on your website once it's published, right? You're going to put it out there for people to be able to get, correct?
For sure, yeah. We'll have it as a download on the website. I don't know if I'll actually publish it, but hopefully we'll get it on Amazon and things like that.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Love it. So tell me, with the volatility of real estate, right? It's up and down. But what are your thoughts on how you keep your business protected for the short and long term in all that volatility?
Also, development is a long game, right? About developing a project, especially multi-family project, if you're not prepared to be with it for at least 5 years.
Right.
A typical apartment building takes about 18 to 24 months to design and permit. In our areas, takes another 2 years to build, takes another year to stabilize, and that's if everything goes well along the way. If there's no major economic event, if there's no major political event. So it's a long game. And then to protect investors and to protect the projects, we always look at the leverage. It's easy to borrow money, but you have to have contingencies if things don't go right. So that's what we educate our partners, our investors about. When we start, so right now we're at very early stages of 2 completely different projects. And one of our owners recently called me and said, the political situation is too unstable. I think we need to pause. And I said, I get it. There's a lot of things happening in the country here. There's a lot of things happening in the world. I understand the sentiment, but think about it this way. Our project isn't going to be built for another 4 years. And do you really think that whatever's happening in the world today is not going to be resolved in some shape or form by the time it's done? And, ultimately it's their decision. If they do feel comfortable that they should wait until things are more calm, so be it. I like to think of the cycles the way that, when things are the darkest, that's when you should probably start buying and start doubling down on your investments. When everything's great, I would be cautious because everybody knows that it's cyclical.
Yeah.
So that's how we'll look at it. If it's a for sale product, then we always model it as an alternative for rent. If we can't sell it for the price we want, can we hold on to it and rent out the building?
Until a
If,
later
let's say,
stage
for
when you
rent,
could-
I'm sorry.
So you would hold it for the pretense of developing it at a later stage. Is that correct?
Well, developing it at a later stage or building the building. But instead of selling individual condos or individual houses in the building, to convert it in a rental product. So
Right.
we would finish construction, then we would rent it out. If it doesn't sell for the price that we want, then we would rent them out, hold on to it for another few years, and then, but at that time.
That's amazing. And so talk me through some of the results, the most rewarding transformations or outcomes that you've had for some of your clients so far.
Honestly, the one of the most rewarding things is to drive by one of our past projects and having kids in the car say things like, "Oh, look, that's the building that Dad built." That's probably the most satisfying thing to me personally. It's always good to people that live in the buildings that we've developed before and learn about their experiences. And just knowing that these structures, it's not just a project, it's not just, money that went in and went out, but it is actually a place that builds memories for the people and helps them grow and evolve and, see their successes and their failures and, hopefully something that would survive us when we're gone. So that's the way we look at it.
So good. I love that. I love that. Is so amazing, right? For your kids driving past a project that you built and they say, "Hey, look, Dad, built that." Amazing. I used to be in construction for many years and I have that with my daughter. She's like, "Yeah, Dad, you built that." And the other context that you just said is you're building homes and places for generations to enjoy. And that is such a good perspective on the development process. I see a lot of developers out there, business owners, that they become so hungry for the profits that they kind of lose sight on the real value that they're creating for the end user. And if you're on the end user, you're always going to have a better outcome and a longer sustainable business than trying to just chase profit margins. I think that's a really good, powerful context. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Every time we work on a new project, I imagine myself living there. I would sit in front of the plans or renderings and stare at them for a long time to figure out
Sorry,
sorry, I lost my
what are
train
your
of thought.
thoughts on talking about the end user?
Thoughts on, right. So every time I look at the plans, I imagine myself living in that building or living in that space. So even right now, one of the concepts that we're studying is extremely small micro unit housing. And I wouldn't be the target market for it. I have 3 kids. We would never live in a small, 300 square foot studio. But nonetheless, I look at the plans and I could stare at the floor plan. I could stare at the renderings sometimes for hours, just trying to picture how I would be living there, how I would be using it, what amenities I would need, how I would get home, how I would get to work from that place. And, traditional, my wife is in marketing research, so she tells me, "You're not the average consumer. Stop thinking that it's your product." But I can't help it. I need to understand how I
Yes.
would actually live in that space to know how the end, consumer is going to be experiencing it.
So good. It's that visualization that's important in any business venture. It doesn't matter what you're building. I believe if you have that mindset to really think about how the end user is going to experience that and actually living in that moment really creates for a much better outcome and a business that's more sustainable. So reflecting on your journey, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. I really enjoyed hearing that. I think it's a very important context to share. So reflecting on your journey, right, over the years from going from finance, you had a construction company, you closed that construction company, you've evolved into development, you're growing a development company. Obviously, a lot of changes. I think you said 2002, this all started all the way, is that correct? It was 2002 and we're now in 25. So that's quite a few years of doing business. Talk to us a little bit about what's your lessons on resilience and sticking to this through all these years. And obviously there's been turbulent times in real estate and economy, and everything that you do is built around macroeconomics oftentimes, right? How are you managing that internally to have the resilience to continue? Talk to us about that a bit.
So I think the biggest realization that I had to come up with, and I forget, somebody gave me that advice not too long ago, is to stop thinking about worst case scenarios. And inevitably, human minds, well, my mind, if nobody, maybe I'm the only one, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people share this experience. We when things get tough, we start thinking about what's the worst case scenario.
Right.
And that could really mess your mind, because the worst case scenario could be really bad. But what is the actual likelihood of getting to the worst case scenario? We can't calculate that. Yeah. Maybe someday AI would be able to help us with this. But the way I think about it is, okay, well, if there's a problem, then we need to just kind of how we started this conversation. You break it down into smaller pieces and you start figuring out, okay, well, what can I do today? And so you make this step. And the advice that I was gotten is stop planning more than 5 days in advance. Just figure out what is your plan for the next 5 days? What are you going to accomplish in the next 5 days? And then you get through that, then you think about the following 5 days and never even consider the worst case scenario, because it's pointless. If it happens, it happens. If you can't avoid it, you can't avoid it. But at least today, there are certain steps that you could take. So that really helped me overcome challenges in business. And as far as long-term planning, I always have these long-term visions. Somebody asked me recently, what is my long-term goal for the business? And I said, I want to be known in every 50 state that I am the developer that could help property owners get their sites developed. So that if somebody has a piece of land and they have an idea of building something there, they would call me, not their architect friend, not their contractor friend, but they would call me, and I would advise them that, hey, if you do have an architect friend, by all means, let's talk to them. But here are the things that you need to know. But again, that's, if it happens, great. I'm not thinking about how I'm going to get from here to there. I'm just thinking about the next few moments of what I need to do. I've got my marketing plan, I've got my project plans, and that's what that's the path we're going by.
I love that idea that you never know past 5 days what's going to happen. It always changes, right? From week to week. Like you have this idea that something's going to work out, but always in business, there's shifts and changes. And so a 5-day plan, that sounds really interesting, to plan out your next 5 days, because after that, it's kind of really an unknown. But if you can get as much done in these next 5 days as possible towards the bigger goal, so long as you're heading in that general direction, it sounds like it's been working well for you. So I think it's a great context and idea. I think a lot of people try and overthink it, right? Worst case scenarios, or worrying about the future, or sometimes worrying about the past, right? And all these things run around in our heads, messing us up, chasing us. Then we end up in different directions. And sometimes people just run around in circles because they're not accomplishing anything. I really like that 5-day roadmap. That sounds like an awesome plan. Thanks for sharing that. That's a good tool and tip too. So talking about the future, what future trends in real estate can you kind of imagine, and how do you plan on capitalizing your projects and all that going forward? What does it look like for you in the future?
Well, so we spend a lot of time figuring out how we're going to keep ourselves busy in the next couple of years. The problem in our industry today is stuff is very expensive. Construction is so expensive that a lot of projects are not going forward because they simply don't pencil. Real
Yeah.
estate isn't worth as much as construction cost. And so you can literally buy a building for less than what it costs you to build a new one in this market.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we've been asking ourselves, what are we going to do? We can't just sit around and wait. We have to figure out something that would allow us to continue developing, continue building. And what we keep coming back to is that the projects that could work, small buildings, small units. The idea being that per square foot, per square meter price is still going to be high, but the overall total value, total price of that unit, if it's a house or a condominium or an apartment, is still going to be more or less affordable. And
Yeah.
we've seen this trend happening in many large cities, but I feel like it's now going to the suburbs and it's now going to the rural areas where construction still cannot compete with traditional construction types of buildings, cannot compete with what's already there. And so that's the path we're pursuing. That's the model we're looking at for our downtown building in Seattle. That's the model we're looking at for our project in Idaho. Is, people need housing. People need places to live. We still have, in the US, we have housing crisis in many large metropolitan areas. And the only way to build more houses or to build more homes is to make them smaller. And at the end of the day, I think anybody would prefer to live in a smaller home than to live outside. So
good. So true. That's a great model. So you're kind of looking at what are the options based on the macroeconomics that are happening, and creating projects with smaller dwellings on is kind of a trend, not only where you guys are, but across the world, I think. Unfortunately, because, construction prices have gone up everywhere. And as a business owner, you've got to figure out ways forward and balance the cost for creation versus the cost of putting it together. I totally understand that. So that's a great model, a great context. I like that. I have, my listeners know that I have two businesses. We do the coaching business and we have a real estate business. And our model is very, very similar as well, is that we create smaller units to diversify and create that growth happening and providing affordable housing for the people that need it in the areas and cities where it's getting harder and harder to buy into and invest in these cities as the changes in construction prices change. And sometimes the complexity in getting those permits also create a barrier for entry. So that adds to the cost too. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you make sure that your business is going to be secure, and two, that the project is going to not blow out on costs as you're going through your projects?
So the main thing that I advise my partners, my clients to always do and to start early is to bring in contractor very early as part of their team. The objection I get from inexperienced developers is like, well, why would I do that? I would rather have the building designed, I bid it out, and I get the lowest bidder. Well, the problem is, how are you going to know that you're even on the right track when you're designing it? And what I say is, look, don't worry about the lowest bidder. It doesn't matter, because this building is going to cost what it costs. If you're concerned about some contractor taking too much profit, I'll walk you through how to validate the numbers and how to see beyond the bottom line to drill down and see what the components of that costs are. But only a contractor, an experienced contractor that has built similar projects before, can sit down with you, go through your design at the very early stage, estimate, give you a list of suggestions, you and your architect and your engineers, a list of suggestions where the cost could be reduced. Then you go back to your design team and you value engineer the process. You go through that list and you eliminate things that cost too much money. And there's multiple different solutions. And so that process, that iterative process between architects, engineers, and the contractors to continuously going in that circle, every time there's a change in the design or every time there's a detail that's being worked out, to have that detail be estimated. That's the only way that I know to whether you stay on target. And that by the time the building is design, the biggest challenge is that a lot of times we get an incomplete set of drawings when we start construction. And I've made that mistake in the past. And it's funny because my father, who's a contractor, he's been telling me a million times, he's like, every time you save $1 in design, you're going to spend 100 times that in the field. But,
Yeah.
it's human nature. We always want to pick the lowest price because we want to save.
Yeah.
But everything costs money. And so
Yeah.
that's the key, is to watch those costs closely. And then there are obviously variables. And so our models, our financial models, always have those sensitivity analysis. What's going to happen to your project if the interest rates go up? What's going to happen if the market change, if the prices go down? What's going to happen if the construction costs go up? And so we calculate all those variables so that we could make an educated decision.
Sure. I love that. Just from a business management or risk management perspective, what I'm hearing is that you bring in a builder at a time when most people would say, no, we'll leave the builder out because we want to tender for the cheapest price. But you're advising to bring the builder in, which I totally understand, because you're now de-risking a lot of the outcomes of the project by having somebody experienced involved that can give you guidance on that, which is amazing, right? Because now you get more clarity on that. And as you said, and I love this because everything in business is numbers. Everything in business is numbers. And your feasibility are establishing the framework that you work within so everyone knows. And so a lot of people worry maybe that the builder comes in and he's going to overcharge, right? We get this builder in and now he's going to overcharge. But if you've been around the market for a while, as you have, you're experienced now, you can understand the pricing models of the builders, and you can de-risk those projects by saying, well, maybe that's too high. You need to bring it down because we know how much that costs, right? And if a builder's making their margins and everyone makes a profit, the builder's happy, you're happy, the client's happy, everyone makes money. Like, that's the best way to be, right?
Exactly. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every team member actually profits from this project. Because if you're trying to make the profit at the expense of somebody else, it's never going to work. If anybody goes into a business knowing that they're trying to capture the bigger portion of that pie at the expense of somebody else, it's never going to be successful.
And your dad was a very, very smart guy to be saying that money saved in the drawings is going to cost you 100 times more out on the field, because it's so true, right? If you focused on just cutting costs and trying to save money in there, it always costs you more in the back end, right? Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it was Frank Lloyd Wright that said, I'm going to butcher the quote, but he said something along the lines of, you could use an eraser on a drawing board, or you could use a sledgehammer in the field.
Oh, that's so good. Very, very intuitive. Love that. Eugene, it's been an amazing privilege and honor hanging out with you today, learning stuff about development. Real estate is one of my passions, and hearing some of the stuff you're doing. You sound like you've got such an incredible business model. To anyone that's in business, I always say, be very strict on the numbers, because the numbers are everything. Without cash flow and without knowing your numbers, everything falls apart. Whether it's real estate, whether it's coaching businesses, whether you're a consultant, doesn't matter. The numbers need to be your priority in every decision-making process. And I really appreciate you highlighting that today, Eugene, as an important context. Draw your line in the sand and know exactly where you sit, who you're going to work with, people that are going to help you move forward, and the people that are going to hold you back. If you have that clear line in the sand, the numbers tell you everything, then your business is bound to grow. It's bound to be profitable. So thank you so much, Eugene. I'm interested to hear more about your book when that comes out. I'd love to be able to share that with our audience. So how do people get hold of you if they wanted to learn more and find out about what you're up to, or maybe ask a few questions, maybe listen to your podcast? What would that look like?
Absolutely, yeah. So the easiest place to reach me is on our website, GIS, S as in Sam, giscompanies.co. There's lots of available information, our past projects, and our 7-step feasibility study. Other than that, I'm on social media, LinkedIn, look me up, Eugene Gershman. I'm on pretty much every other social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, EG_developer.
Now, if you were to give one big bit of advice to anyone out there wanting to start a business, whether it's in real estate or whatever, what would that one piece of advice be?
One piece of advice, if somebody wants to start business, I would say find yourself mentors, find yourself a circle of advisors who you can always call on and ask questions. Don't assume that you know the answers because you don't, and don't assume that you cannot do this because you can.
Wow, that's really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's been an honor and a privilege hanging out with you.
Matthew, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Fantastic. All right.